are reacting with cautious optimism. Yunji Denise reports.
President Bush acknowledges that finding common ground between Israel and the Palestinian Authority will not be easy, but even he seemed caught up in the possibility of peace as he kicked off this morning's historic meeting in Annapolis.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. It's a beautiful day here.
But the president is tempering his optimism with a bit of realism. He says his goal is not to conclude agreements, but to begin negotiations about issues that have long divided the region.
The time is right because a battle is underway for the future of the Middle East, and we must not cede victory to the extremists.
Negotiators will tackle the issues of security, settlements, refugees, and Jerusalem. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas appealed to the Israelis, emphasizing that this opportunity may not be repeated.
Peace and freedom is a right to us, inasmuch as peace and security is a right for you and for us.
Israeli President Ehud Olmert reached out not only to Palestinians but also to the rest of the Arab world, asking them to embrace Israel.
There isn't a single Muslim state with which we do not want to establish diplomatic relations.
The meeting is off to a potentially historic start. President Bush announced that the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority have agreed to a framework for negotiations with the hope of reaching a conclusion by the end of next year. Yunji Denise, ABC News, Washington.
And joining us now is Michael Shank. He is the Government Relations Advisor at George Mason University's Institute for Conflict Analysis and Resolution. Sir, how hopeful are you that something significant might come out of this meeting? It's off to a pretty good start.
Dan, you're right. It is off to a pretty good start. I think the cause for optimism lies in President Bush's declaration that he would like to spend the remainder of his time in Oval Office dedicated to the peace process. I think it's also, we're seeing international support, unprecedented international support that we've never seen before. 50 nations have been invited. Most of them are in attendance. So given the international community's level of support and President Bush's declaration that he'd like to spend the remainder of his time in Oval Office dedicated to this peace process, we're likely to see more substantial negotiations this time around. Now, any expectation for a settlement this week or a declaration that answers everything this week, I think is unrealistic, but this is the beginning of a long process that will remain in President Bush's term of office, I think through 2008 and perhaps in 2009.
You know, it was interesting sitting here yesterday watching a lot of very important people make, you know, mildly optimistic noises about this conference, but at the same time, we saw video of Orthodox Jews at the Wailing Wall praying for these talks to fail. We saw pictures of angry Palestinians parading in the streets of Gaza, hoping that these talks will fail. How large are these constituencies, and how powerful is their message?
Well, that's a good point. There are extremists on both sides, fundamentalists on both sides of the conflict. I think the way to go about it is to undermine the argument. I think take extremism in Gaza. 3/4 of the population in Gaza is living under $2 a day. The 4,000 businesses that were open pre-Hamas leadership, now that's down to 300. Brownouts are frequent. A lot of the trade has been shut down because the import and export is impossible given the closure of the borders. That is cause for further extremism. So if we don't allow, in this case, Hamas at a seat at the table, how do we attend to the needs and the voices of the people of Gaza to prevent further extremism from arising? I think it's a powerful surge of extremism in both camps, but I don't think it's impossible to overcome. I certainly don't see it as a major obstacle.
Is it okay to come to an agreement with Fatah and then impose an agreement on Hamas after the fact because Hamas won't talk?
Well, certainly U.S. foreign policy protocol is to not negotiate with adversaries. We have that policy in place with Iran, and you're seeing that now with Hamas. The problem with that is if you don't attend to the needs of, the voices of the people represented by that leadership, you exclude the 1.5 million people living in Gaza. Unless we provide a forum for their grievances, legitimate grievances, we're not going to see any long-term solution sustained in the long run. So I think there's an inherent problem with excluding them from the table, and their voices need to be drawn in as well.
Okay. Michael Shank, nice to see you again, sir. Thank you.
Dan, thanks for having me.